Emmet, you've muted yourself.
Still nothing.
No, he's made an absolute mess of this. He has an absolute mess of this. I'm in the background. No one can see me. They can't hear me. Drop out and come back in, and we'll sort it out. Hi everyone. This is the viewer's voice. This is Gav because Emmet decided that he's a mute now. You can't see me, but you can hear me. Tonight's show is brought to you by Bobby's Wish to Walk. The link is in the description. You can go in there and you can donate if you want. We're waiting on Emma. Or if you can't, copy the link, share it amongst all your friends, family, colleagues, and all that sort of thing. Dan is with us, Matt is with us, Ron is with us, and it's all good. So let me just see now. We have Emma coming back in here. Jesus. Let me see. Emma Cabinet. Now, Emma, you walk away. I've told people to donate, and I've told people that who's with us, but take it from there.
So, hello, good evening, and welcome to the LFC Daytrippers. I'm Emmet, and I'm embarrassed. No. So, with me tonight, if it hasn't already been said, is Matt from Canada, Ron from Washington, and Dan on his first show all the way from Nottingham. How are you, Matt?
Doing pretty good. Still a little reeling from the other night's quiz disaster. But yeah, ready to get back on the horse.
It wasn't a disaster at all. Ron, did you watch the show the other night, the quiz?
I did. That was a good laugh. That was a good laugh.
It was. How have you been? We've not spoken in a few weeks.
Yeah, man, it's been good. Just trying to dodge the 40-degree days here, and and try to enjoy a bit of the holiday. But that's about it.
Good stuff. And Dan, your first time on the show, you're very welcome. Like we did with Matt and Ron when they came on first, do you want to maybe tell ourselves and the viewers a little bit about how you became a Liverpool supporter?
Yeah, so probably my earliest memory was 89, I think. Red candy kit with the little flicks in. That was my first kit that was bought for me. And the two earliest memories, both are very different. One was Hillsborough, the other was the final day shootout against Arsenal at Anfield. They're the two memories that stick out. For me, they're the earliest ones. So yeah, it just went from there really. Just a lot of my friends at primary school were all Man United fans, and I just wanted to go against the grain, really, I suppose. So I did, and that's been me for the best part of 40 years.
So 30 years of pain, but it's been well worth the wait. Good stuff.
Yeah, as you know, Emmet, the 90s and early 2000s were painful days, but we're here.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
You appreciate it better.
Oh, you do, yeah, absolutely. That's what I keep telling my little lad. Enjoy it now because it may not last forever. So, look, exactly. We've not spoken to Ron and been speaking to Matt just before we kind of get into tonight's topic. So this is the viewer's voice. What we do is we ask Matt, Ron, and Dan to give a topic. But before we actually get into the topics, how's everybody enjoying pre-season? Ron, have you been watching the games?
So far, so good. I don't put a lot of stock into them. I just like to see. I like them just because it's a chance to see the first chance you get to see the Reds before things get serious. So I don't take the results too seriously. I just like seeing the interplay, seeing the build up, seeing how guys are getting along, and hopefully no more injuries. So so far so good.
Good stuff. And who, if you had to pick one player that stood out for you in preseason so far, who would you pick?
For me, Carvalho. I think he's very, very interesting. I really can't wait to see how he's going to turn out this season.
We've actually spoke on this show before, and none of us knew where he was going to be deployed. Are you happy enough with how they're actually playing him? I think he's been listed as a forward player more so than a midfield player.
Yeah, he has. and he's mostly been working in that area, but I still don't know that that's settled though. As I could see him being rather useful, a little bit further back, especially considering when I watch where how Nunez ends up playing in the team. He ends up creating a lot of space where a person who's naturally inclined to play a 10 could kind of flow into, because Nunez likes to stay high up. So I mean, it's interesting. Like it's to see how that's going to play out.
Good stuff. And yourself, Matt, have you been enjoying pre-season?
Very much so. It's always great when you score tons of goals, but like just looking and charting each player's minutes, and you can see that they're all just every game they get a few more minutes. And now with them announcing this extra preseason behind closed doors game after our first Premier League game of the season, like it just shows Klopp wants the entire squad to get 90 minutes in their legs. The players that play on Saturday won't play on Sunday. And then the same thing next weekend is that all of our players are going to be primed and ready to go for the season. So like that's just been great, because every game that you've watched, there's been a noticeable improvement in like the cohesion of the team. Like everybody's hitting their pressing triggers better. Like in the second half of the game yesterday, we just pressed the life out of them at moments. Like we looked like we were in, pretty good fighting form for heading into the season. So.
Good stuff. And Dan, we've both experienced lots of pre-seasons. As pre-seasons go, how's it been for you?
To be fair, I mean, I've not watched any of the games because work's been absolutely manic, so I've not had the time. I've just caught snippets of results, players playing in that position, this position, how we've done. For me, pre-season is just about getting minutes in the legs, making sure we don't come away with any serious injuries, and letting the management give players time, eyeing a few tweaks out if you want to play a few players in different positions they wouldn't normally play or you wouldn't get the time. So yeah, as long as we walk away from pre-season without any long-term injuries, and we've got minutes in players' legs, then I'm happy. That's all I look for.
That didn't look too promising last night after about 20 minutes, and there was at least a few knee-high tackles going in from Salzburg. But look, we'll move on to the points that we're going to debate tonight. So first up, Matt, and it's your topic was midfield goals. So basically, what we have been producing, what we feel we should be producing going forward. So start off, what do you expect from the midfield this year compared to previous years?
I expect this upcoming season we're going to get roughly the same output we've gotten from our midfield in all of Klopp's seasons, and it will lead to anytime we get a result that doesn't go our way, people pinning it on that we don't have enough offensive threat coming forward from midfield. And I just don't think the team is set up for it. I don't know if it's worth the risk of throwing off the balance of how the majority of our attacks are built up coming through our fullbacks, of trying to play a player that plays in that Bruno Fernandes role, in that little floaty 10 role. Like, it's the way our system is set up. So after the quiz, instead of going a little bit easier on it, I got into some weird stats and numbers, and I came across something called expected threat. Now, Gav, let the stream run. Let the stream run. I don't buy into any of it at all. I don't think it's an ironclad thing that you can say this equals this. Like, it's not quite like baseball in that regard, but statistics do still hold some value, right? And they're using math behind it to aggregate it out. So expected threat last season, the top two players in the league were Trent and Mo. Next was Cancelo. Fourth was Rafinha. So those are the types. So the other non-Liverpool players, Kevin De Bruyne was 9th on this list. Robertson was 10th. You've got to go a long way down on that list to find where a midfielder comes in for Liverpool. But you also need to go pretty far down on that list to find anybody else's pair of fullbacks on that list. It seems like the way our team is set up, like Trent overproduces offensively from right back so much more than any and every other right back in the league, that you need to have a more utilitarian midfield. We can't have a PSG, a FIFA dream team where you can just have 99 superstars everywhere. You have to have people that are willing to put in that running. Like, if you think of last year's Real Madrid team, Fede Valverde did dog's work in that midfield, running around, because Vinicius Jr. wasn't really tracking back, or Benzema wasn't really tracking back, or Rodrigo wasn't, and Cruz and Modric are old, and he's running around all over the place. We've got midfielders like Gini Wijnaldum, like Jordan Henderson, like James Milner for a reason, and that's just to facilitate it in there. So, like, it's a little tiresome because we've done all of our business in the window, that the only thing that's left is this midfield question. And it's the thing that just keeps coming up over and over, is we need more goals from midfield. We need more goals from midfield. But really, if you look at the number of goals we scored in pretty much every season under Klopp, it's hard to demand more goals out of this team. So I just don't think that's the way Liverpool's offense is created. So it's something we shouldn't fascinate over too much.
For me, and I think I've said it on here and maybe in Telegram chats, for me, I think we're missing someone that's going to hit one from distance. 21
but is that not
goals.
Trent? Is it not better to expect that? Because you look, Trent last year, 2 goals. 2 goals. That's not enough goals from Trent. Robertson, 3 goals. The center halves all had 3 goals. We should be getting more goals from corners. We should be getting more goals from free kicks. Trent and Robertson need to start, like, they're getting into the positions. They're just not finishing. So, like, I think instead of expecting Naby Keita or Jordan Henderson to chip in with 6-8 goals a year, it might be smarter to just expect our fullbacks to finish, a few more of those chances.
I think Robertson probably is more guilty of it than Trent. He kind of seems to be presented with a lot more chances than Trent does. In terms of them actually scoring from distance, they're probably... You've got Mo, who's a left footer, who's playing on the right hand side. You'd kind of nearly need to switch them if you were going to be expecting them to cut inside to strike a shot on goal. 21 goals, well, 22 if you count Elliott as a midfielder, is what we got from midfield last year in all competitions. I'll go
3
to you
penalties.
now, Dan. I'll go to you, Dan. Would you be expecting more from midfield, or should we be expecting more, or can we expect more from midfield?
To be honest, no, I don't think we can, not with the makeup of the midfield we have. You're looking at what we've got that have come in, so maybe if Elliott gets his chance, you could probably look at him and say he could probably deliver maybe, I don't know, argument's sake, 6 goals in a season, but he needs to have a regular run of games. So I'm not sure how many he's going to get. Carvalho, I don't think is that player yet. I don't think he's ready for that, and I certainly don't think he's going to play in that midfield 3. For me, I think we're probably going to go with probably a 2 and then 1 maybe floating a bit further forward, so he could play in that position maybe. But no, for me, Emmet, the midfield does exactly what it should do. It's a base. We have a lot of our work that goes down the flanks. That's where we create most of our chances. And I think they're just there to sit, recycle the ball, make sure that we're not caught in transition quickly, and just like I say, just to give that platform to the wide players and the lads up front and the 2 fullbacks to cause the problems. Because if you look at the midfield that we've got, Keita maybe, the ones that we've got that you could probably say is creatively going to maybe get you a few goals to break the lines, but the rest of them, they're not really that. They're more functional than off the cuff kind of players, if you like.
Yeah, as Matt said, I think the 3 penalties you were talking about, Matt, they would have been Fabinho. So
Fabinho, he had that great stretch in January, February where he just kept scoring.
8 goals, so take away. So none of the midfielders scored any more than 4 or any more than 5. Sorry, Ron. What's your opinion on the midfield? And are you with Matt and Dan in terms of? And I get what you're saying there, Dan, and it makes an awful lot of sense in yourself as well, Matt. That the kind of our midfield are more there to kind of fill the gaps for when Robbo and Trent go forward. So, to Matt's point, if we're not going to get more from the midfield, should we be getting more out of Robbo and Trent in terms of goals? Look, their assists in bagfuls, but should they also be chipping in with goals?
So I would address I'll take the Trent and Robbo point first. I would say yes, and I think when you said Robbo's more guilty, I agree with that. And it's not just because he's presented with chances; he's often presented with sitters or damn near sitters. So it's like we need you to put that one in, Robbo. I mean, you're a professional player. Like you're 5 yards out. Like that. Come on, like we could use a bit of that. But what he brings, he's got credit in the bank, so no one's going to hound him too much. To the second point, though, I actually do think, while I do think the midfield is functioning as intended, I take homage with what I take on what you were trying to say a little bit earlier. I think, Emmet, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you were going down the roads of shots from distance, and I think while I'm not saying we need to score more of those, we definitely need to carry more of a threat, because 9 times out of 10 in the Premier League season, we're going to be faced with teams who want to sit back. They want to sit back, and us trying to cut them down the flanks. They expect that to happen. We're not pulling, and it's hard for us to pull guys out of position in the middle of the park because we're not taking shots. So they know they don't have to close that down. They can stay in shape. They're not too worried about the random pop from 35 yards. And you can say, well, that's because we want to keep ball retention, keep recycling it, and that's what the midfield is trying to do. And I understand that the logic of that, but you do need to keep them honest. So I would like that to be there. Now you also have to have guys playing that have the quality to do it. I would argue we do on most games, but a few more wouldn't hurt.
Good stuff. Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm not expecting them to even. I mean, maybe Jones when he plays will be somebody, but you've kind of seen that he kind of nearly taken that out of his game, the shooting on site. But we do. I just feel that we do need. And for your point, what you said there is that at this moment in time, we're not known for shooting from distance for whatever reason it is. If it's a tactical reason, but teams know that they just need to line up across the 18-yard box, and we have to try and kind of pick a hole in the defense to try and score. That seems to be the only way we can score. Whereas if you have a threat from distance who's gonna take a pop every now and again, they will kind of break the line to get somebody to come out and rush and try and block them down. And look, when you take a shot, if a keeper spills it, we're gonna have people in there to snap them up as well. And we're really good at winning the ball back up high. So even if they do win the ball back, I just think it's like you said, Ron. It's to present more of a threat than anything else. Rather than having someone sticking them in from 25 yards every other game. But look, I would be we're split kind of nearly down the middle, so Dan and Matt on one side, Ron and Emmet on the other side. Maybe a nice little segue into Ron's point or topic is the Bobby Firmino issue, or Bobby Firmino situation, linked with Juventus. By all means, well, if you listen to what Klopp said, I think it was today, he's gone absolutely nowhere. I'm delighted. He's my favourite player in the Klopp era, or the last 6, 7, 8 years. Could he be, and I don't know whether it's the romantic in me to want to keep him in the team, could we possibly see Bobby dropping into the midfield and be this person who can get these goals from midfield? But in terms of your topic, Ron, Bobby Firmino.
Yeah, so it's 2 parts to it. One, and without us really talking about it much in the chat, you kind of hit on my second point. One is, what is it? Before it was just the links with Juventus, before they start actually put a number valuation out there of what people are kind of rumoring the offer might end up being if they were to make an offer. So the question number one is, $420 million. 31-year-old guy, last year of his contract. Do you take it? I mean, if you stop to think about the fact that it's not, if you take the fact that it's Bobby out of that scenario, I would imagine most people would say, you probably should. It probably makes a whole lot of sense, but because it's Bobby, and because I would say most Liverpool fans have an adoration of the guy, it makes it a little bit harder to go through that analysis and come down, one way or another, because your heart definitely says, it's up to Bobby. If he wants to stay, you keep him in the discussion. But the guys who have the big chairs at LFC, they've got a little bit more to think about when it comes to that. So I would put that question out to you, to the team, to see what, and to the chat to see how everybody feels. And then second, if you are going to keep him, where do you think he's best deployed? Do you think we keep the traditional front three going? Do you let him and Nunez develop some sort of partnership naturally and see how that works? There's a lot of different ways for this to go. And I honestly don't know what's best, because we've got the community shield coming up. Looks like Bobby's going to be leading the line on that, and there could be a lot of reasons for that. But Nunez, for all intents and purposes, does offer something completely different. Which way should we go? So my personal opinion is to keep him, and to let him find his way in how we play. I think he's earned the right to do that, and I think he's good enough to do that tactically and skillfully, and then see where we go from there. But I wanted to get everybody else's sense on how that might work out.
Cool. My opinion is I wouldn't take the 20 million for a number of reasons. I think he still has a part to play. I think with the Jota situation, we don't know how long he's going to be out for. So, and I think that there are a few in the chat saying to let him go at this stage would be crazy. And in terms of where do you play him or where do you deploy him, we've seen during the preseason games, you've got Elliott or Carvalho trying to play Nunez in, and the ball is kind of maybe bouncing off him, or they're not finding that perfect ball. Could Bobby be the person to slide Nunez in for these balls? He just wants to play on the shoulder, run off the shoulder of players. Bobby could be ideal for sliding those balls into him. Matt, your opinion on Bobby? Would we accept an offer, or should we accept an offer? And if not, where do we deploy him, or what kind of a role does he have to play this season?
Yeah, it's a hard nose for me all around. I think going into the summer, even, at the tail end of the season, people talking about contracts coming up with the big three all kind of coming down to their last year. It always seemed like the consensus for most people was extend one runs out, sell one. And that seems to be exactly what's panned out. We've sold Sadio, Bobby's going to run his last year down, and we've extended most contracts. So, I didn't think there was any chance of him going. And Kev O'Sullivan made a really good point in the chat saying they just spent huge money on Vlahovic. Bobby's not going to go to Juventus and be the number one starter, So the whole thing didn't make sense. Where he'll be deployed, I really like the idea of legacy building from within the team, of having a good, strong group of leaders in the team that have been there, done it, that know what it means to be a Liverpool player, to pass that on to the next generation. It's a boot room kind of idea. I really believe in that. I think that's it's something that winning teams seem to have. If you can set up a dynasty, you look at the New England Patriots, you don't think that there were guys there like Teddy Bruschi and stuff like that might not have been the best player in the world, but boy, they sure made everybody else around them that much better. So, and I think Bobby Firmino is going to fill that role for us. He speaks the same language as Fabio Carvalho. You could possibly see Fabio taking up that role that Bobby had, 4 or 5 years ago, playing that almost positionless sort of number 9 position. I think he's just too good. He's too important. And, we don't want to leave ourselves short. Everybody's saying we need a midfielder when we've got 8 people. We've already lost 3 forwards in one summer, and you don't want to lose, a 5th one. So, but, Bobby's got a role to play. There's also a major spot open in terms of the fans' favorite, cult hero currently at the team, with Divock Origi gone. That title is there to take for somebody, and all it takes is a couple of big goals. Bobby comes on as a late substitute in the Charity Shield and bags the winner, sort of thing. And we could all be really remembering good times with Bobby Firmino this year.
Good stuff. Dan, so would you let him go? I think it's probably going to be a resounding no. But would you let him go? And does he take up this position in the team, like Matt says, this legacy building? And is he kind of taking somebody under his wing? And if so, Do we have the Bobby replacement already in the squad? And who do you think that is?
I don't think we've got a Bobby replacement within the squad, because what he has done for the team is you could look around Europe and you could try and maybe find a replacement. But if somebody, for example, like Juventus come in and say, we'll give you 25 million, even at 50 million pounds, you're not buying a Bobby replacement with 50 million pounds. It's costing you north of that, and pretty much 75 million, even north of that. Not to mention that he's ingrained in the system, the way that Klopp works, the way that the squad works. He's the ultimate professional. There would be no way that I would be selling Bobby Firmino, even at the start of the summer. If you would have asked me, I would have said no. The fact that it's near enough the beginning of August and somebody's coming knocking on the door, not a chance that I'm selling Bobby Firmino. He does things that nobody in our squad can replicate. He's that perfect false nine. Teams have looked at how we have played them front three in the last 4 or 5 years and said, how can we replicate that? What can we do to bring players in that can do exactly the same as what Bobby does, Mo does, Mane did? And they've all tried, but there isn't one. There isn't another Bobby Firmino out there. And I wouldn't want to take Bobby Firmino out of that squad that we have now, knowing that we have Jota injured, we've lost Mane, and then we've bought Darwin Núñez, who's going to need some bedding in time. And yes, he plays a different role. He's a 9, a conventional 9, I suppose, if you like, compared to a false 9. But Bobby's he's that buffer. If Darwin's not really firing and Jota's still injured, he's your man to just drop into that position, and you can say, we'll give Jota a few weeks, we'll give Darwin a few weeks, and we'll see how he beds. But we've got this man here. So no, not a chance I'd be getting rid of him.
And do you see him, what kind of a role in the team do you see him playing? Do you see him playing much this year? Or?
Yeah, I think because of the 5 subs and the fact that the season's so condensed, he will play a major part in that first, what is it? I think it's 16 league games, 6 Champions League, and maybe is it 1 cup? I can't remember exactly the numbers, but he will have a big say in that first part. And as I said, the fact that there's 5 subs, you can bring him off you can bring him on, so to say, with 20, 25 to go, or you can start him and bring him off with 20, 25 left, and you're getting enough minutes in his legs. I think he'll still play a fairly big part in this season. After the World Cup, who knows, because he'll probably go to the World Cup with Brazil. We don't know exactly how much game time he'll get there. I think he's still quite a permanent fixture in their squad. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I think first half of the season he will play a massive part, and that's the reason why there's no chance I'd get rid of him. And he's a legend anyway, so.
An absolute legend. Ron, just with it was Bobby's your point there. Do you see him remaining in the position, or like I've suggested in the past that maybe he could be somebody that's deployed more in midfield rather than up top? I mean, he could be deployed in defence. He's like a Swiss Army player. I'd say if you check the defensive headers of some defenders in the Premier League, I'd say Firmino probably has better stats than some of them. But do you see him changing position, or is it going to be, like Dan said, more so the 5 subs, an impact sub to come on? What a sub to have, by the way. Or do you see him maybe a role changing in the team, or a positional change?
I'd have to say I think Dan's idea is most likely the 5 sub, either having him start a game and come off with 20 to go, or brought on with 25, 20 to go. The other thing that it's very tempting, although I don't think it's likely, but it's very tempting because it's the one thing you're always kind of curious to see, which is Bobby in a 10, which would require a change of formation. and it's a very tempting one because we have so many pieces that look like they fit perfectly into that, especially going forward. But it doesn't seem like I haven't seen too much of it this preseason, so I don't know if it's really something that's on Klopp's mind. Doesn't seem like it, but it's very, very tempting to think about. Very, very tempting.
Would that mean a change to Matt's formation? Is it 3 at the back?
3 at the back, baby. That's what I'm talking about. You just play Joel, Ibu, and Virgil at the back, and you let everybody else go buck wild.
Matt, do you see a change of position at all? I know I've seen a few in the chat saying that he probably doesn't have the legs for midfield, but it would be more so at the kind of the top of the midfield, like you said, Ron, a 10, or even if it is a change of a formation to a 4-2-3-1, you could see him maybe fitting in the middle of the tree behind Núñez. Do you see a change for Bobby, or will it be a case of time from the bench? And is a player like Firmino happy with just time from the bench? Or is he somebody, I know he's 31 or 31, does he want to be playing more regularly? Or do you think he's happy enough with the part he's going to play? Look, they're going to, please God, play another 60-odd games again this year, so he's going to have plenty of game time. But do you see a positional change, and is he happy with playing the odd time here and there?
I mean, how he feels about it, everything is going to be hearsay. But if you just look at how he sacrificed his own potential glory for the team, like the one last year where he has an open net and passes to Minamino to have the tap in, like they're both trying to give each other the goal. Like he seems like the type of player that kind of understands that. We got a good group of Brazilians there. Hopefully all their ladies are friends, like hopefully all their wives are friends and their kids go to the same school. Like hopefully all those things are working in our favor. 4-2-3-1 position change, anything like that. Like just thinking about it, and I threw it in the chat talking about Bobby as a sub of like, oh my, like that is just such a perfect game changer, regardless of the game state that we're in, whether you're winning or losing, or, it's on a knife's edge, you feel like you're under the cosh, you can bring Bobby in and he's just going to know what to do. But if you bring him in and you go to a kind of a 4-2-4 situation, and you think about him and Darwin up top playing as split strikers, but instead of splitting left and right, one drops and the other one goes. Because one thing from the preseason that I would say has been pretty obvious is that Darwin Núñez wants to go forward. Darwin Núñez wants to get on his bike, and he wants those passes around the corner, whereas Bobby, is always showing for the ball. So you play them as a pair, and Bobby can drop and Darwin can go. And you think about some of the passes that can, be hooked around the corner, some of those great Bobby moments, his assist against Southampton, Newcastle, where he just does some sort of line dancing maneuver, and all of a sudden the whole line is broken and we're off. So, yeah. So it's exciting. It's because it feels like and I'm buying into it. We're so close to the season now. My optimism level is at 100%. Like it couldn't be higher. It's 103 points. I think we can take this season. I feel fantastic, and I always do. Like, why not? If you're going into the season, you may as well feel good about it. So it seems like the team's really gelling up nicely. There hasn't been a lot of hiccups in the preseason. Everything's gone pretty as much to plan as Klopp and Co could have hoped for. So it's happy days, get into it. And just something that I heard recently, the first League Cup game isn't until the 8th and 9th of November this year. I was guilty of being like, oh, maybe we'll see Calvin Ramsey in the first League Cup game. We still might. He might be back from his injury in time for that. But it's a real delayed start to the League Cup this year because of all the Champions League congestion, I believe. So, or something along those lines. It's such a strange season. So.
Let's stay on that point for a second. Dan, are we getting 103 points this year?
Won't put it past us. Wouldn't put it past us. To be fair, if City are up for the fight, then it's usually it's a straight shootout, isn't it, between us and them. They push us on, we push them on. That's where the bar has been set the last 3 or 4 years. That apart from obviously the anomaly, which was a season we had no players. But yeah, we've set the bar so high, and they've done exactly the same. But yeah, it'd be nice. I think 103 wins in the league.
Does Ron, anybody break the monopoly of the top two, City and Liverpool, this year? I know there's an awful lot of talk going on about Spurs and how they've spent all right. They've brought players in. I'm not too sure on the quality of those players, but Does anybody break the top two this year?
I don't see it. You know, Spurs have done. Spurs have made a lot of moves, a lot of quality moves that I wouldn't be. I would think are great for them. But the gap that they have to make up to catch us or City is just way too big. Even though we drew with every top six side last season, I don't see head to head. I don't see Spurs being any more dangerous than they already were. If that makes sense. Even though they did strengthen their squad, I think that strengthening of their squad is more about having a stronger bench for them. I don't know that it really changes much in their starting 11. So, not really, not for me.
No, I don't think so either. I do think Spurs will do well, all right, but maybe not as well, not good enough to basically break Liverpool and City. I think they could push for third, I think, and maybe squeeze Chelsea down into fourth. But sure, we will see. Dan, onto your topic. Dr. Andreas Schlumberger. For anybody that doesn't know who Andreas is, can you let everybody know who he is?
Yep. So I did a bit of diving into
Lovely.
what he does and his background. So we employed him. I think it was the late 2020 or very early 2021 as head of recovery and performance. I remember at the time when we announced that, I was thinking, oh, okay, it makes sense given the fact that we'd already lost Virgil. Matip, I think, had gone by then. We'd lost Gomez. That was just a centre back, so I can't even remember who else was on the sidelines by that point. But it made perfect sense to bring in somebody that was basically going to be in charge of this player comes back from injury at this date. This is when I get hold of him, and this is when I do my work. So I make sure that everything is right before he can basically go back into full training, and that seems to have been his job. He's got an impressive CV. He's worked with Klopp before at Dortmund. He was there for 4 years. He's worked at Bayern, Borussia Mönchengladbach. We kind of stole him from Schalke because they had financial issues, which allowed us to go in and steal him from them. But basically, he has a very, very close relationship with Andreas Schlumberger, who is head of fitness, and Lee Nobes, who is head of physiotherapy. So it's basically a day-to-day meeting with them to understand, more importantly, the players' loads at that time. So Jota, for example, for argument's sake, played Saturday, light session Sunday, or didn't train Sunday. Then Monday we're going to do X, Y, and Z with him. This player's got this, this slight knock. So he's, I want to try and bore people with it, but his role is actually massive. Klopp has spoken on numerous occasions about the fact that we can't compete with City, Chelsea, obviously now it'll be Newcastle, United in terms of the finances for players. So we have to think outside the box, and that includes keeping your biggest players or your best players fit and available more often than anybody else. So his job is to do that. His stats that he has are pretty impressive. I'll go into them in a minute, but a lot of people, Van Dijk, Joe Gomez, Harvey Elliott, Diogo Jota have all spoke glowingly about his appreciation for their individual schedules, if you like, and making sure that he knows exactly what their body can absorb and take in in terms of recovery and the next stages of the physiotherapy and the strength and conditioning. But I looked at some of the numbers last night, in terms of the players that we've had on our books, obviously, and who have been known for missing games. Joel Matip, for example, 2019-2020, he misses 27 games and is out of the team for a total of 118 days. 2020-2021, which is when Andreas came in, he missed 38 games, a total of 226 days. Go to last season, and Joel Matip missed 2 games, totaling 10 days. That's just one player. I mean, Keita was the same. 2020-2021 season, misses 23 games, total of 97 days. Last season, he misses 8 games, total of 48 days. So you can see when you look into it and delve into it deeper, you can see that what he's doing is bearing fruit. And Matip, for me, last season was a perfect example. Even Oxlade-Chamberlain we didn't see him very often, but
he was available.
Pretty much in. Yeah, he was available for most match squads. He just wasn't on the bench. And he was promoted July of this year to head of medicine and fitness. From what I've read, he's basically got more of a say in terms of our strength and conditioning work and what we do pre and post game, individual programs, etc., etc. So he's very, very astute at that kind of thing. And Klopp has basically said that in terms of what he does, and in Germany, he is number one, the best at what he does. And I think we can see with what he has done in the last probably 18 months. He was also very influential in an appointment that we've only just made, which was a person called Vanden Arweel. I've absolutely butchered his name, but he's basically been brought in as head of osteopathy, which is preventative work, so stretching, moving, massages, muscles, joints, all that kind of stuff. And we're actually the first club, by the sounds of it, in Europe to have somebody in that role. There's nobody else that has that role defined within their club structure. So we are the first one, and he was a massive advocate of bringing that person in or finding somebody to do that part of the job. So yeah, his work behind the scenes probably doesn't get picked up by people outside of the club because they don't really, and they wouldn't do. Why would you? But people within the club can obviously see that he's made a huge difference to our fitness levels, post and pre-injury, post and pre him coming in.
Yeah, and Lazo says it there in the chat, and I'm sure probably others have as well. That football these days is insane. The amount of games that players are expected to play, the timing in between games, is getting shorter. I mean, last season we were playing games every 3 days, but that's the way football and sports in general is going. All this, sports scientists, etc., and like you kind of touched on there, Dan, that you can nearly expect that Klopp nearly gets a timetable to say this is what such and such is doing. He'll be ready to play again on Tuesday. And you see people's heads falling off when they have an open training session and such isn't training. But we've said on this show and Fatback 4, etc., that there are a lot of players that are actually on their own individual recovery plans. So they could be in on a bike or they could be on a treadmill rather than out on the pitch. How important is somebody like this? I'll go to you, Matt. And thanks, Dan, for giving us all kind of an insight into it, because when you first mentioned this topic, I thought it was the lad that did the throw-ins. So up until about an hour ago when I checked it. So I didn't know who he was.
Just
so there
before,
you go.
Sorry, apologies for butting in. Just before I let that go to Matt, we looked at him, or Klopp should say, looked at getting him in 2017. We couldn't do it for, I think he was probably at Dortmund at the time or Bayern. I can't remember which one it is now. But one of the reasons why Klopp wanted to get him in a couple of years ago when he wanted to get him in was because he had one eye on the World Cup in Qatar, and he knew that there was going to be a condensed block, if you like, of games. And this is one of the reasons why Klopp said we need to get this guy in. So, to him as well for getting the man in to do what he's doing. But yeah, sorry.
And that's another great point, is that this year is a kind of an anomaly that the World Cup is actually mid-season. So not only are we hopefully going to play 60 odd games, we're going to have a large chunk of the squad will be going away to a World Cup. So in sports these days, not just football, Matt, how important is somebody like Andreas, Dr. Andreas? I'll call him by his first name to avoid embarrassment.
It goes so, like, that's a copy of our chief nutritionist's book that somebody saw at a bookstore that had me for Christmas this year and had a Liverpool on it. They knew I'd like it. So, like, we managed to build. Now, obviously, I don't know anything about anybody else's backroom staff, because why would I pay attention to another team's backroom staff? But I've started to, like, because Klopp's had that core group of people that have been around and they've just kept adding people. So, like, Mona Nemmer, they poached her from Bayern. Klopp liked what she was doing, went to the owners and said, we want to get this. This is what it's going to cost. Go and get her. And, Ron, you might understand this as well, too, of, like, we have baseball owners. The guys that own Liverpool own a baseball team. And load management and, like, making sure the guys don't break down too much. Your most valuable assets in baseball are your starting pitchers. And you do not want to break one of those horses down. So they get managed very, very carefully. And when the doctor says they're good to go, they're good to go. And, like, you're seeing it now a lot in the NFL. It's not coming to hockey. One of the top hockey players was asked about load management, game management in hockey. And Brad Marchand said, like, get that soft shit out of here. This isn't a pussy sport or something like that. So, hockey players are still refusing to accept that you can't be playing at the level that they're playing at, 3 times a week sort of thing. Like, it's physiologically, it's not good for the asset, I guess would be the business speak way of looking at it. Like, these are billionaires that own a baseball team. They are going to want to carefully manage their assets. And you know what? I'm fine with it, because one of our biggest assets just signed a new contract. And if he can stay fit, he could become our top goal scorer ever. So, like, I love the fact that they're being, like, the coaching staff is getting expanded and they're adding on these specialist niche, throw-in coach. How many fans were laughing at us for having a throw-in coach? Emmet, you watched the game. I don't know if, Dan, if you caught the game. We had a throw-in routine that we've now run twice, and the one time it got us a penalty against Crystal Palace. It was a throw-in where Henderson ran underneath it, flicked it over his head, and Luis Diaz was coming in, bursting in behind him. It's a set play because we have a throw-in coach. It's the sort of thing that all teams, top teams, are going to be doing in 10 years. The thing with the Neuro 11 thing with all the wires on Trent's head, 10, 15 years, all the top teams will be doing that. This is just what the cutting edge looks like. And some of it might be bunk and not work, but a lot of that stuff is just going to become regular, common medical science in sports in 10, 15 years. So,
well, I mean, even the way Trent throws the ball, I'm not sure if anybody noticed that he kind of has one hand more so. It's nearly more like a basketball throw at this.
Yeah. Spin on it.
Yeah. But Ron, in terms of how vital this the doctor and the recovery team behind the scenes are going to be, how important they're going to be this season, it's almost like Matt says, we're doing it. It's the cutting edge. Everybody will have it. They'll be wearing those neuro things in the Leinster Senior League in 10 years' time. But how important is this guy going to be this year to us?
I mean, the whole time Dan was giving his rundown on Dr. Schlumberger, the only thing I could keep thinking was Joel Matip. That if he's responsible for the minutes we got out of Joel Matip, he paid for himself tenfold just on that player alone in terms of value. I mean, and the way I like to think about it is, this is something when I played football, well, American football in college, this is something that they were always honest about, is making sure you report things, even though you actually want to be on the field as much as you can because you don't want to lose your spot. But the way I like to put it is, in terms of thinking about how this stuff is important, is if you think of any physical activity you do, right? Instinctively, if you did something strenuous today, you probably shouldn't do it again tomorrow. So you take the time off, right? But what if you don't have the option to take tomorrow off? how on earth are you going to get ready to do what you need to do and perform the way you need to perform if you don't have the time to take off? You need a guy like this Dr. Schlumberger, to tell you how to get your body ready so that you can do whatever it is you need to do the next time you have to perform, wherever your time constraints are. So it is literally invaluable to have somebody that knows what they're doing and is at the top of, and to have people at the top of that game, because, you're talking about, even on the pitch, we talk about it being a game of centimeters. Go think back to that city game where it barely crossed the line. If it's that way on the field, it's equally in percentages, small percentages off the field too. Can you recover that 1% faster, that 2% faster? Can you do it by using this technique, using these exercises, using this amount of time, or doing more, 10% more rest? All of that plays into it, and these guys know how to maximize that formula, and it's invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, it's the players are only short of being androids these days, aren't they? I mean, they're actual machines, and they need to be finely tuned. And someone said earlier on in the chat that the days of the magic sponge is gone, and I was only thinking that myself. And the days of Bob Paisley carrying Emlyn Hughes off the pitch out of the jockey back, you're definitely not going to see that kind of stuff these days. So it is great, and I think hopefully this year, especially with the World Cup, we are definitely going to be needing that recovery. The games will come thick and fast this year as well. I think the World Cup is only over about a week, and we're back on Stevens's Day or Boxing Day for a game against, I think it's not Leicester. I can't remember who it's against.
It just feels like it has to be Leicester, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I think it might be. I'm not sure who it is. I think it might be Aston Villa. Yeah, I think this season alone, and like you said, Dan, that Klopp said, or it's thought that Klopp brought him in because of this season being so condensed, and I think we stop. I think the season finishes and I think it's the 8th of November or something like that for the World Cup, and then we're back again then on the 26th. And players that go there, if successful, let's face it, a lot of our players play for the kind of more higher ranked countries, and they may go the distance. And if they're going the distance, they could be playing anything. How many group games do they play? 4 group games or 3 group games, then into quarterfinals, last 16? Yeah, 3 group games, quarterfinal, semi-final, final possibly. So they're squeezing that into the space of a month. So there is no kind of a break for the players. So I think Dr. Andreas and his team will be extremely busy this year, and just delighted to have them, and great to learn so much about them as well from Dan. So thanks for that. Go on, Dan.
I was just going to say that because of the season the way it is, he and the rest of that backroom staff are probably looking at it. It's not a conventional season where you say this is pre-season, so we'll load all the players up and we'll expect them to hit a peak at this time of the season, or after 10 games we'll see that they are progressing well. You've kind of like got to look at the season and say, well, it's a block of 2. So do you want to have a normal pre-season with all the players and get them to that loading position ready for that point in the season, or are we just doing X, Y, and Z to get them up to that week of the season, like the first 16 games, for example? I can't really explain them in that layman's terms, but yeah, it must be. All clubs are obviously having that same scenario, but he's probably looking at it a bit differently and saying, well, 16 games, we need to do things differently with pre-season. We need to do maybe X, Y, and Z differently, and also with the players. Looking at the likes of Van Dijk, played 60 games was it last season after an ACL?
Van Dijk played 51 games. 51, I think, according to this. Maybe I haven't updated.
Yeah. Question for you, Dan.
He's obviously looking at him. Yes, go on, Matt.
Thinking like that, do you expect us to come out of the blocks just full speed? Because that's kind of what it seems like with the ramping up of preseason. Like, you're slowly feathering an engine in, and we're ready. Like when you're taking off a plane, like they're ready to just jammer all the way forward now, because you've got that condensed schedule that you get that 6-week break. 6 weeks, like.
Yeah, I think so, Matt. looking at or reading in between the lines of the double sessions, sometimes triple sessions that the squad have been put through the paces, it looks like he's looking at the season in 2 blocks. So he's going to hit the first 16 games with this amount of players, and then the next 16 games or however many left after that second part of the season, 22, we'll do that, and we'll deal with that after post World Cup, I suppose, and we'll see who we've got. But I think they are looking at that very much so. I don't see that he's. I think he's looking at trying to say, well, there's no room for error these first 16. We've just got to fly out the blocks and just go for it. And that's why we've loaded these players in pre-season with double and triple sessions. I think that's why some of them were supposedly leggy against Leipzig. Was it Leipzig, Salzburg the other day?
All the games, the players have looked leggy at points.
Yeah, because we've absolutely overloaded them in training.
Yeah, they probably had a session first thing in the morning, then the afternoon, then they were playing their matches in the evening. So I think the game that Nunes, I think was when they came on with the last 30. I think somebody had said they had done 3 sessions that day. They felt that his lungs were on fire after 2 sprints when he came onto the pitch. Ron, you were trying to come in there.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you guys think it's kind of interesting that City seems to be taking a little bit of a different approach in that they've got their preseason is a little bit more limited in terms of games, especially leading up to our game, the Community Shield on the weekend. So I'm just wondering how everybody feels about that. I mean, it's not a topic that we just wanted to bring up that we didn't add.
We can talk about. We can add topics. Let's go.
But how I know feelings vary about the relevance of the Community Shield, but do you think it's interesting, how to see how the 2 approaches might play out given in that game, given that they haven't focused on matches as opposed in the preseason, as we've had a rather condensed build up with that. And what do you guys think how you think that's going to affect the game or the start of the season?
I found it really unusual that I think they'll have played 2 preseason games before the Community Shield.
Yeah.
And I thought it was I don't want to say getting hopes up, but it was kind of like, oh my God, they might start slow. And I think City historically start slow. And then I can't remember, I was listening to a podcast last night, and they were saying that Pep is historically likes to spend more time on the training pitch with players rather than playing preseason friendlies. Not just at City, it's been in previous roles as well. But I kind of have it in my head, Ron, and I'm glad you kind of even said it, that they might be a bit rusty. They've not kind of played together. Like, they do have to change. I know Haaland scored a very Man City goal on his debut, but I do think that they have to change their style of play. So can you change that just on the training ground? I don't think so. They don't have an easy game first game either. I think it's away to West Ham. So for me, it's unusual. Kev O'Sullivan said in the chat earlier on that he doesn't think that we have that many players going to the World Cup. Anyway, I'm nearly sure that's what I read. No, we probably definitely don't have as many as City, which I also think not only is the start kind of disrupted, but they've also got a disruption in the middle. Every team is going to be disrupted in the middle of it, but some more than others. They'll have an awful lot of players going to the World Cup, and that could impact them as well. So how quickly do they get going when they come back after Christmas? I'm not sure how you feel on it, Matt, with the kind of stunted pre-season for them.
Never thought about it. Yeah, I try not to think about Manchester City because they're a nothing club. But when you think about when City puts their foot down to win a title, it's December, January, February, and they go on a 14-game winning streak. It happens pretty much every year. You get into that condensed part of the season. You start getting up into the festive season. The games are coming all the time. Pep has his players perfectly drilled, and now that's all going to get blown up. So I hope that it is disastrous for them. I hope that not having that continuity.
He hasn't thought about this much at all, Ron, has he?
Well, just as you were thinking now, it could be really disruptive to what they're doing because they're going to have a lot of players go. to the World Cup. A lot. Like the majority of their players. So that's 6 weeks that, Dr. Andreas Schlumberger is got guys like Luis Diaz and Mo Salah in ice baths and getting electroshock therapy to get them ready for the second half of the season, whereas their guys are going full tilt. So, they're not going to be practicing. Like, I can't imagine that our guys are going to go on more than a week vacation. The players that aren't going to the World Cup before Klopp has them in some sort of mini training camp. It's not like we're going to be taking the players that we have that aren't going to the World Cup are not taking a 6-week holiday. They'll get a few, maybe a week or two off, and then they will be right back to it. So, yeah, we could be very well poised to hit the ground running twice, having this big break in the middle. And yeah, hopefully it really makes fucking Pep's piss boil, and he absolutely loses it this season and decides he doesn't want to do this anymore and goes away.
Dan, do you read much into the kind of the shortened preseason? Like, it's a shortened preseason for everybody. Don't get me wrong. We normally play 7-8 games, but City with only having 2, and then obviously the preseason friendly on Saturday for the Charity Shield. Do you make anything, or do you read anything into it, or do you read anything into how they'll be after the World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they've only played two pre-season games is a bit of a strange one, to be fair, especially when you're trying to get players back up to speed, and he knows exactly what the season's going to entail. He knows that there's going to be a sprint to the first finish of the season, if you like, to that midway point. And then post World Cup, who knows what kind of scenarios we're all going to have to deal with. Pep might come back post World Cup and have 4 or 5 players out for 2 or 3, 4 weeks, and that's all you need really to knock you out of your rhythm again, and you're struggling. Man City, as we know, don't have a massive squad, and Pep doesn't like to carry a massive squad. He never has, never did at City. He hasn't done at City, never did at Barca, never did at Bayern. Likes a small, close-knit squad. That's going to create its own issues in terms of players available for him for that first and second half of the season. But yeah, I see why people say he likes to try and put his ideas across on the training pitch, and I can see that point to some extent. But you haven't the opposition that you're up against, or the players that you're trying to tell this is how we all get. This is how we are going to play. You're not putting them up against an opposition that's playing a totally different system and trying to eradicate what you're doing. So pre-season games for me, that's where you get the minutes. You put them hard minutes in the legs, get the lungs working, and build up the fitness. You can't do that on the training pitch. Not what that's my opinion anyway.
Good stuff. So look, it's just gone over the hour there. What I'm going to do actually, and I'm sure probably Kevin, Chris will make predictions tomorrow. So the match on Saturday, Charity Shield, Community Shield, Charity Shield's what it used to be called. Community Shield. I think it's 5 o'clock. Is it 5? 5:15 kickoff on Saturday. Give us score prediction, Ron. You know the rules. If you're going to say, you have to give the scorers. So score prediction from you first, Ron.
2-1 Liverpool, Salah and Diaz.
Matt. 4-1 Liverpool. Salah opens the scoring, and then Firmino with 1, and Virgil and Darwin.
Dan?
I think we nick it on penalties. I think it will go the distance. I can see it being a KJ affair and a bit disjointed because of the squads, players available, etc., etc. So yeah, I think we'll nick it on penalties.
I'll go 2-0. I know everybody thinks I'm mad because if Haaland plays, he's going to be an absolute monster and he's going to score 1,000,000 goals. But I'll go 2-0. And I will go... I'll go Salah and... Nunes. That's although winning the Community Shield doesn't generally bode well for the winner going forward to win the league. So maybe it's best if we don't win it now. But look, thanks everybody. Sorry, you touched on it there earlier on. Kev and Chris will be back with a kind of a new revamped show tomorrow night. Myself and Matt actually got a sneaky peek at some of the visuals and the templates for it, and it looks absolutely unbelievable. So everybody should join in on that one tomorrow evening at 10 o'clock, and they'll have some guests on it as well with them. Matt's going to use it to try and fill out the rest of his fantasy Premier League team. So
I heard from a credible source that Gavin Bazunu is going to be the best goalkeeper in the league this year. So
was it Southampton that bought him?
Yeah.
If he doesn't play, I don't have a starting goalie, so I should probably watch Friday's show.
Everybody should watch Friday's show. Well, listen, Dan, thanks very much for coming on. First show. We'll hopefully see you again. Anything else that you'd like to add?
No, just thank you for having me. It's been great.
No worries. Matt, anything more to add?
No, not at all. Just it's getting giddy time. We're getting so close to kickoff, man.
Good stuff. And thanks for coming on. Partner in crime at this stage. And Ron, good to see you again after a few weeks break. Anything else for yourself?
No, likewise, man. Good to see you guys again. Looking forward to getting the season on the road, man.
Good stuff. So that was the viewer's voice. We'll be back again next week. Next week we actually have another viewer coming to join us. Owen will be on next week, so we look forward to that one. We'll see you then.